We all like to think that demons and exorcisms are just the stuff of horror movies, a thrilling scare we can just turn off when the credits start to roll. But what if the most terrifying stories aren't fiction? What if they're history? From a secret 23-day ritual the church tried to keep hidden, to modern priests battling what they call a shocking increase in demonic warfare, we're about to uncover some of the most disturbing and meticulously documented exorcisms ever recorded. These are the stories that seem to defy all rational explanation. When you hear the word exorcism, you probably picture spinning heads and green vomit, a desperate priest in a dark room clutching a crucifix as a demon laughs from the body of an innocent. Hollywood has conditioned us to see it as dramatic fiction, just a story. But the rite of exorcism is a real, sanctioned practice within the Catholic Church. It is a last resort in a war it believes is being waged for our souls. For most of history, this rite was performed in the shadows, its details known only to the priests and the afflicted. But sometimes, a case is so extreme, so profoundly disturbing, that the details escape the darkness and are recorded for history. These aren't just ghost stories whispered around a campfire. They are chronicles of events, documented in personal diaries, detailed in church records, and told through the eyewitness testimonies of those who were there. We're going to look at the cases that have become legendary, the ones that force us to question the boundary between the world we see and the one that might be lurking just beyond our perception. We'll explore the evidence, the phenomenon that seems to defy any scientific explanation, and the human cost of these terrifying spiritual battles. We begin in the American Midwest, in the early 20th century, with a case so severe and so thoroughly documented, it's still considered one of the most convincing and terrifying accounts of demonic possession in history. To really understand the horror that happened to the woman we know as Anna Ecklund, you first have to understand the life she led before all this. She was born Emma Smith in 1882, and she grew up in a devout Catholic family in Marathon, Wisconsin. By all accounts, she was a pious, normal young woman who went to church and lived a quiet life. But that peace was shattered when she was just 14 years old. It didn't start with a bang. Instead, a darkness just slowly began to creep into her life. She started having disturbing, intrusive thoughts, blasphemous or sexual things her quiet, religious mind could never have conceived on its own. Then came the physical aversion. She found she couldn't even enter a church, a building that was once a source of peace now felt to her like a wall of fire. Holy water, once a comfort, reportedly felt like acid on her skin. Doctors couldn't find anything physically wrong with her, and psychiatrists at the time had no frame for what she was going through. As the years turned into decades, her condition only got worse. By 1912, at the age of 30, her family sought the help of the church. A Capuchin priest named Father Theolopus Reisinger, who was already known for his experience with spiritual afflictions, was called in. He performed an exorcism, and for a while, it actually seemed to work. Emma, who was now using the pseudonym Anna Ecklund to protect her identity, was free. But that peace was fragile. The evil that had attached itself to her had not been defeated, it had just retreated. And this is where the official account takes a sinister turn. It is alleged that her own father, Jacob, and her aunt, Mina, were practitioners of witchcraft. The story, as told in church-sanctioned documents, claimed they had cursed Anna as a child because she allegedly refused her father's incestuous advances. It's claimed they used dark spells and hexed her food with cursed herbs to weaken her spiritual defenses and keep the door open for the entities that plagued her. So when the demons returned, they came back with a force that would test the limits of faith for everyone involved. 16 years after that first exorcism, the darkness came back, and this time it was absolute. At 46 years old, Anna's life descended into a living hell. The phenomenon that had tormented her as a young woman now escalated dramatically. She would fall into violent rages, and her body would reportedly contort into impossible positions. The pious woman she once was gone, replaced by a vessel for something hateful and obscene. Desperate, the family once again sought out Father Reisinger. In 1928, he was an experienced exorcist and knew this case was severe. He understood that a simple ritual wasn't just going to be enough. He needed to wage a prolonged, intensive battle. A friend of Father Reisinger, pastor named Joseph Steigler suggested a secluded Franciscan convent in the small town of Earling, Iowa. It was isolated, secure, and home to nuns who could provide round-the-clock prayer. It was here that one of the longest and most harrowing exorcisms in modern history would take place. On August 17, 1928, Anna Ecklund was brought to the convent. The moment she arrived, the entities inside her allegedly made their presence known. Food that was blessed with holy water sent her into a fury. She would hiss like a cat at the sight of a crucifix. The nuns of the convent, women of deep faith, were about to become frontline soldiers in a spiritual war. The battle for Anna Ecklund's soul was set to begin, and it would rage without a break for 23 agonizing days. On August 18, 1928, the formal rite of exorcism began. Father Reisinger, helped by Father Steiger and the Franciscan sisters, placed Anna on a heavily fortified iron bed. As he started reciting the ancient Latin prayers of the Ritual Romanum, the room grew cold. Then, with a speed that witnesses described as lightning fast, she reportedly broke free from the nuns holding her down. They claimed her body was flung through the air and that she landed high up on the wall above the doorway, clinging there like an insect. The siege had begun. What followed for the next 3 weeks was a relentless onslaught of supernatural phenomena, all meticulously documented by the priests and nuns who were there. According to their testimony, Anna would levitate, her body rising off the bed and just hovering in the air. At other times, her body would supposedly become so heavy that the sturdy iron bed frame actually began to bend under the unnatural weight. And then the voices started. They were not Anna's. Guttural, animal-like sounds came from her throat, sometimes multiple voices speaking at once. According to the priests, they spoke in languages Anna couldn't have known: perfect English, German, and fluent Latin, taunting them and revealing their secret sins. The entities supposedly identified themselves. One was Beelzebub, another claimed to be Judas Iscariot, and most disturbingly, 2 of the voices were said to be those of her own father and aunt, the very people alleged to have cursed her. The physical things they described were grotesque. Her face and head would swell to unrecognizable sizes. She vomited constantly, but witnesses claimed it wasn't food. It was a foul-smelling debris and large quantities of tobacco leaves, things she hadn't eaten. The room was filled with such an overpowering stench that the windows had to be kept open at all times. For 23 days, the entities inside her refused all food and water. Her body withered, yet she continued to show what was described as superhuman strength. The whole ordeal was so grueling that several of the Franciscan nuns reportedly had to be moved, their faith shaken by the sheer evil they believed they had witnessed. But Father Reisinger was relentless. The exorcism was divided into 3 intense sections, with the final climactic battle taking place over 8 straight days, from December 15th to the 23rd. In this final session, Father Reisinger pressed harder than ever before. The climax arrived on December 23rd. After hours of intense prayer, a final horrifying shriek echoed through the convent. Anna's body convulsed violently and then went still. A deep silence filled the room. The foul atmosphere that had lingered for weeks just lifted. Anna Ecklund opened her eyes, and for the first time in years, she smiled. In a weak voice, her own voice, she whispered, "My Jesus, mercy, praised be Jesus Christ." The 23-day war was over. According to the official account, Anna Ecklund was free. The woman who came out of that room was physically devastated, but her soul was her own again. The story claims she went on to live a quiet and peaceful life, passing away in 1941, although there isn't any independent documentation of her life after the exorcism. The story itself, however, was just getting started. In 1935, an account was published in a German-language pamphlet titled "Begone Satan," written by a reverend who had gotten the details directly from the priests and nuns. The pamphlet was a sensation. It was so shocking that in 1936, Time magazine ran a profile on the case, bringing the story from a secluded Iowa convent to the entire nation. The Anna Ecklund case, or the Earling exorcism, became one of the most talked about accounts of possession in American history. But not all of those battles ended in victory. Sometimes the fight against darkness leads to an ever greater tragedy. Our next case takes us to post-war Germany, to a story that is far more recent, far more controversial, and one that ended not with a cry of praise, but with a verdict of negligent homicide. The apparent resolution in Anna Ecklund's case offers a glimmer of hope in the terrifying world of spiritual warfare. But that isn't always the outcome. 47 years after Anna was freed, another young woman would find herself in the grip of what her family and priests believed were multiple demons. Her story, however, would become a brutal cautionary tale about the thin line between faith and fanaticism, and the devastating consequences when that line is crossed. This is the tragic story of Anneliese Michel. Anneliese Michel was born in 1952 in a small, deeply religious town in Bavaria, West Germany. She was raised in a strict Catholic household and was known for her piety. But the first sign that something was wrong came in 1968 when she was 16. She had a severe convulsion and blacked out. After another episode a year later, she was diagnosed with temporal lobe epilepsy. Doctors believed her seizures and trances were symptoms of a medical condition. She was put on medication, but the medication didn't work. By 1973, her condition had gotten much worse. She began suffering from severe depression and started having what she described as demonic hallucinations while she prayed. She claimed she heard voices telling her she was damned and began to see the faces of demons. Her once deep faith now became a source of terror. She developed an intense aversion to religious objects, finding it impossible to even walk past a crucifix. To her and her family, this wasn't epilepsy. This wasn't a psychological disorder. After 5 years of failed medical treatments, they became convinced that Anneliese was possessed. Anneliese's behavior became more and more extreme. The once pious young woman was now ripping the clothes from her body, performing hundreds of squats a day to the point of exhaustion, and crawling under a table, barking like a dog. In horrifying episodes, she would eat spiders and coal and even lick her own urine from the floor. Her family just watched in horror as she was transformed into something unrecognizable. Desperate, the Michels appealed to the Catholic Church for an exorcism. Their requests were denied at first. The modern church is extremely cautious and insisted that all medical treatments had to be tried first. But the family kept pushing and finally found a priest, Pastor Ernest Alt, who took their claim seriously. He and another priest, Father Arnold Renz, petitioned their bishop, Joseph Stengel. After a lot of hesitation, Bishop Stengel finally gave his permission in September 1975. He authorized Father Renz and Pastor Alt to perform the Great Exorcism of Anneliese, but with one critical condition. The entire ritual had to be performed in absolute secrecy. With the bishop's approval, all medical treatment was stopped. Family and the priests put their entire faith in the power of the exorcism ritual. It was a decision that would later prove fatal. For the next 10 months, Anneliese would endure 67 exorcism rites, some of them lasting up to 4 hours. And what happened during those sessions would become the subject of a global debate, all because the priests made a fateful decision. They recorded 42 of the sessions on audio tape, to document proof of demonic possession. Those tapes, they're the stuff of nightmares. On them, you can hear Anneliese's voice shift. It drops into a deep, guttural growl, and then into other distinct voices. The entities claiming to possess her were numerous. They identified themselves as 6 different demons, including Lucifer, Cain, Judas Iscariot, the Roman Emperor Nero, and even Adolf Hitler, whose voice she allegedly spoke with a thick Austrian accent. The voices speaking through Anneliese would argue with each other and with the priests. They would scream, blaspheme, and describe the horrors of hell. During the rituals, her physical strength reportedly became immense. It often took several men just to hold her down. She would break the bones in her knees from performing hundreds of compulsive, violent genuflections. As the months wore on, Anneliese began to starve herself, claiming the demons would not let her eat. The exorcism continued week after week. Her body wasted away. She grew gaunt, her eyes sunken, her face a mask of suffering. The priests and her family believed this was all part of the spiritual battle, that her suffering was a form of atonement. But in reality, Anneliese was dying from severe malnutrition and dehydration. In her final weeks, she was battling pneumonia and a high fever, weighing a mere 68 pounds. On June 30th, 1976, exhausted and broken, she performed her final set of frantic genuflections. Looking at her mother, her last reported words were a simple plea, "Mother, I'm afraid." The next day, on July 1st, 1976, Anneliese Michel died in her sleep. She was 23 years old. Anneliese's death was the beginning of a legal and a theological firestorm. The autopsy was clear. She had died from malnutrition and dehydration. Her death was preventable. An investigation was launched, and soon her parents and the 2 priests were charged with negligent homicide. The prosecution argued that Anneliese was a mentally and physically ill young woman who was denied the medical care that could have saved her life. The trial, which began in March 1978, captures the world's attention. It was modern medicine versus ancient faith. Doctors testified that her symptoms were consistent with her diagnosed epilepsy and psychiatric disorders, likely made worse by her intense religious upbringing. In response, the defense played the horrifying audio tapes right there in the courtroom. They argued that the exorcism was legal and that the four of them had genuinely believed they were fighting for Anneliese's soul. In the end, the court sided with medicine. The parents and both priests were found guilty of negligent homicide. They were sentenced to 6 months in jail, which was later suspended. The court ruled that while they may have believed they were doing the right thing, they had a legal and moral obligation to get medical help for the dying young woman. The verdict sparked a fierce debate about the practice of exorcism and continues to this day. Anneliese's tragic story even served as the inspiration for the 2005 film, The Exorcism of Emily Rose, making sure the questions raised by her death would not be forgotten. The cases of Anna Ecklund and Anneliese Michel might seem like relics from a bygone era, but according to exorcists working today, the exact opposite is true. Far from fading away, the demand for exorcism is reportedly on the rise. One of the most vocal people on this topic is Father Vincent Lampert, an American priest and exorcist for the Archdiocese of Indianapolis. When he was appointed back in 2005, there were only about 12 designated exorcists in the United States. Today, he and others estimate there are well over 100, maybe even as many as 175. The Pope Leo XIII Institute was even founded in the US in 2012, specifically to train new priests to meet this growing demand. Father Lampert reported that in 2018 alone, he received over 1,700 requests for help. So what's driving this apparent surge? Priests like Lampert point to a few key factors. One reason they cite is a general decline in faith, which they believe creates a spiritual vacuum, leaving people more vulnerable. Another major factor they point to is the internet and a renewed cultural fascination with the occult. They argue that things that seem harmless, like using a Ouija board, can be dangerous spiritual doorways. These exorcists also report that modern cases seem to be more aggressive. While historical accounts often talk about exorcisms lasting hours or days, it's now not uncommon for priests to work with an afflicted person for months or even years. And this trend isn't just in the Catholic Church. Pentecostal and charismatic Christian denominations, which practice a form of exorcism they call deliverance ministry, have also seen explosive growth. But this rising demand and practice also comes with immense danger. Tragic cases like that of a Romanian nun who died in 2005 during a botched exorcism serve as a grim reminder of the horrific consequences when things go wrong. For this reason, the main challenge for the modern Catholic exorcist is discernment. Is the person suffering from a genuine spiritual affliction, or is it a psychological illness that needs medical care? They work closely with doctors to rule out all of the possibilities, stressing that true demonic possession is incredibly rare. They are adamant that it is real. From the 23-day ordeal in an Iowa convent to the tragic death of a young German woman, these documented cases challenge our modern understanding of the world. The story of Anna Ecklund, with its witness account of levitation and a victorious ending, stands as one of the most compelling arguments for the reality of demonic possession. But the story of Anneliese Michel serves as a dark and necessary counterpoint, a tragic reminder of the profound dangers of misdiagnosis and of abandoning science in the name of faith. And again, the phenomenon of exorcism isn't fading away. It seems to be entering a new, more visible era. Experienced exorcists are reporting a stunning increase in demand, and the church is responding by training more priests than ever before, preparing them for a spiritual battle they believe is escalating. These stories leave us with some deeply unsettling questions. What really happened in that convent back in 1928? Was Anna Ecklund saved by a courageous priest? What truly happened to Anneliese Michel? Was she a tormented soul possessed by demons? Or was she a profoundly ill young woman failed by the very people who were supposed to protect her? Are we living in an age of increased spiritual warfare, or is the rise in exorcisms just a symptom of our own modern anxieties? The accounts are written, the tapes have been recorded, the eyewitnesses have spoken. Whether you see these as documenting history, religious parables, or tragic cases of misunderstood mental illness, one thing is certain. These stories force us to confront the deepest questions about the nature of evil, the power of faith, and the terrifying possibility that the horror we relegate to fiction may not be fictional at all. So what do you believe? Was Anna Ecklund truly possessed? Could medical science have saved Anneliese Michel? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. These stories are complex, and we really want to hear your perspective. And if you want to explore more strange and mysterious cases that challenge our understanding of the world, make sure to subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell. Thanks for joining us on this journey into the shadows.